we gather today is traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Adirondack and Mississauga people, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many Indigenous people. The Dish, the territories in which we live and work, is never emptied, and that we take care of our land and its inhabitants in a way that ensures its future sustainability. So welcome all those present to, and there are two major types of applications to this committee: applications for consent and severance, and applications for minor variances to municipal zoning bylaws. Me this evening. Additionally, please maintain respect while communicating with the committee, staff, and other meeting participants to ensure a smooth, orderly discussion. Copies of decisions will be mailed to the applicant and or any other person who appeared before the committee or filed a written request to receive a notice of decision. And it goes on. That has an interest in the matter has the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of the consent. So the making of the decision and the cost of an appeal is still $400. Was for our motion. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda from the committee member? Thank you, Tom. May we have a motion to adopt? Thank you, Carrie. Does any member of this panel have a conflict of interest in a previous meeting where I was not in attendance? Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment?
There is one request in order to have time to review and consider staff comments and any subsequent design changes. And
okay, so the applicant has approached the committee.
At the moment, we've got what we think is an attractive, architecturally sensitive, economically viable addition to our garage. And although we were aware of some of the concerns staff had raised previously, there were other items and concerns that were in concert with that.
So your meeting or 3 months, or I make a motion? David, thank you.
I'd like to move that application A8124.
Well, then there were 6 files this evening we're going to look at in more depth. The first one being 72 Vine Street. This is a severance application, and we have a staff report, which the applicant would also have received, which recommends 3 conditions with respect to the approval of the condition. And this is to establish easements in perpetuity to benefit 15 Yale Crescent. This was the U-Haul. And your shirt kind of gave it away too. So,
Matthew Tubman, I'm here to represent U-Haul Company of Canada in terms of the easements. We had previously put a blanket easement over both properties in order to facilitate the boundary adjustment. Now the boundary adjustment has been granted and finalized. We are narrowing those easements to the area in question.
Now that there's been more information made available. Any questions from the members of the committee? Anybody in the gallery wish to speak to this application? I'd invite Tom to make a motion.
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that consent application B5822 SC as presented in the notice of hearing be approved subject to the conditions outlined in the technical report, as the consent is desirable and compatible with the surrounding area, has no adverse impacts on the surrounding properties, has regard to the provisions of section 5124 of the Planning Act of the Provincial Planning Statement, and does not conflict with any applicable provincial plans.
And that's how we do it here, in the best situation. So our second item is for 320 Geneva Street, pull the previous applicant. This is a minor variance application. The staff report that we've received. Oh, this is for a 49-unit, 4-story apartment building. minor variable. So if, would you mind turning on your mic, stating your name and address, and you're welcome to add anything more to the discussion you feel is important.
Got it, right there? I got it. Okay, perfect. Yeah, my name's Dean Pilon. I'm a new development project manager at Niagara Region. Just here representing, obviously, the region on this build. Our architect was on his way, but transitioned from homelessness to permanent housing.
And would you say that the that therefore that use would not be as high a parking load demand as other?
Oh, sorry. Yes, absolutely. There's minimal parking requirements. Obviously, it's a homeless population, so it's just, we only need a few spots for staff on site.
Are there any questions or clarifications? Nope. Is there anybody in the gallery who wishes to speak to this application for 320? Deal is, if you have something you want to say, we'll invite you down to the top of the horseshoe. You'll sit down, turn on the microphone, and give us your name and address. This is our purview here is the minor variance application to reduce the parking space.
Diane Ganders, and I live at Ted Street, 14 Ted Street. And I just wonder, what other areas have been looked into having this type of housing?
So the topic so yes, so you're probably concerned about the service that this building might be providing. However, that is not in our purview this evening. We're the Committee of Adjustment, and we're just looking at their request to have us basically provides less parking than the zoning bylaw requires. So with respect to the occupants and the type of occupants in that building, that is not open for discussion for this committee, because that is not what we're looking at this evening. It's just the parking. So I can understand, yeah, so that's really all we can talk about this evening. Okay? Are you on your way down? Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah. Concerned about this building. We know that it's all about parking variances. And really, it's common sense. You're dealing with people of low income, no income. Obviously, they don't have cars. They shouldn't have cars if they're in this kind of building, right? So it's kind of a, when can we and who can we talk to about this building?
Well,
Because it's shut down.
I can tell.
have no voice in it. So can you
The
please
situation, when it comes to housing and someone wanting to build a building, there is no distinction or prejudice against who lives in the building.
No.
Based on race, religion, whatever else. So in this case, there would be a zoning bylaw that would allow a certain type of building types, presumably, since we're not here for any other minor variances, it allows for residential development. This is residential development, but it does not discriminate about who lives in those residence and dwelling units. So that's a human rights matter, which goes way beyond.
I understand that, but why is it that if a land developer buys land, there's a committee, we can talk about it at city council. Why is it because the city and region owns this land, we, the taxpayers that paid for the land, don't get a voice?
Okay, so I will answer your question as best as I can, but we are off topic.
Yes.
So if a development for a proposed piece of land meets the requirements of the zoning bylaw, there is no discussion. What happened in, I can't remember, 2013. So that was the public consultation. Then that becomes, it goes to council, it gets voted into as a bylaw, and that's the measure sense if you take the time to do some research on what zoning bylaws are supposed to do, and that they would have less demand for parking and beyond the point of this
Correct.
meeting.
And I've sent emails to the mayor, council members, the premier. Nobody wants to get back to us about this because it's such a hot topic and everybody wants to look good.
Well, ideally, there should be some response to a concerned
There
citizen.
should be.
Yeah.
You know, we're paying the taxes on that land.
No, I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Right?
If you turn your mic off on your way out, thank you. Thank you. Is there anybody else, any questions or clarifications from the members of the committee as a result of what we heard?
Yeah, through you, Chair, to the applicant. Or do you also have kind of a idea?
So we do housing building, but we do have a building in which we renovated in Niagara Falls, which is bridge housing on a much smaller scale. Parking for that facility, again, is very minimal, and it's only staff. So I believe there's only maybe 8 or 9 spots, and we don't use all of them for that building.
We're here to consider this as a minor variance, right? And if a private developer was to come and propose a development similarly and say, we're just not going to market these units to people with vehicles, I'm not so sure that the recommendation would necessarily be the same for approval. And so, I mean, part of me wonders if this would have been more applicable from a 45% reduction in parking point of view. The minor aspect is something where I struggle out with this. So that's where I was wondering about if there's similar areas where this has been done where
used for other purposes down the road. We don't have kitchens in these units. A kitchen, the kitchen in the common room is there for teaching and learning and providing food. The only thing that they have in their kitchen is a lot of unique design requirements, or not requirements. How would you phrase it? Like it's characteristics. It's uniquely designed for bridge housing. It's transitional, so it's a matter of months. I think forgive me, I don't know the maximum amount of time, but it's intended to just be months. It's to train and helped by our staff to find permanent living accommodations.
Okay, thank you for that response. Any other questions from any other committee members? If not, we'll welcome a motion. I see your finger, but are you going to make a motion or you have a question?
I would be prepared to do a motion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kerry.
124, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate, and desirable for the use of the land. It is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Thank you. Although, now we move along to somewhat familiar address, 43 Old Coach Road. This is a minor variance application. It's been, a pool shed in the backyard that is infringing on the minimum setback from the interior lot to an accessory structure. So I have the applicant please come down, and city staff are recommending denial. There were a number of, from previous meetings, there was a number of plan, that sort of thing. So at this point, if you could please refresh us with your name and address, and let us know if you have any comments about this report. So presumably you had time to read the staff report, which would set up their reason for recommending denial.
We have to maintain the building. There's zero maintenance on this. It's aluminum sided, it's got engineered, so I don't even understand where that claim comes from. It's not something that has to be maintained. But anyways, because when the structure was built, it was built at a 6-foot elevation. That was in consideration for the neighbors, and I would just climb on the roof and clean out the gutters. There's allegations of massive amounts of water. I did conduct an experiment. I installed eaves trusses, and the amount of water that was equated to the heaviest rainfall we had this summer was a barrel of water. So I don't know how engineering verifies ridiculous and ludicrous statements, but it'd be nice to know that they at least put a little bit of calculation or thought corner. The walls are behind fences, so the neighbors aren't even aware of where the wall location is. It doesn't even affect them. And again, I can rehash this and go back, but it's been since 1990 when we bought the property, and this backwards to make our lives uncomfortable.
Okay, so without getting into any kind of personalities, but ultimately, the reason why you're here is that the building is in violation, brings it to the public interest in terms of a public meeting, which allows others to comment on it. So With respect to, so thank you. Were those items made available to the city?
At the request, I had to purchase a new survey. As per the request, I had to have a professionally done. We have gotten together some of the neighborhoods and that, and we have concerns. We did have a preliminary plan set forth by the engineer. I can tell you that I have a lot of training and a background. I'm a constructional rate, I'm a trainer, whatever. My neighbor is more qualified. Drawings dictating a swale even existed. The second thing was an accusation that it flowed eastward into my neighbor's property through his pool, and anyone who could, I was not heard at all. And then I said, okay, I want to show you one thing before you leave. And when we walked over, I showed him that his plan basically had all the water running right at the main bell pipe along the back of my property. He goes, now we're going to turn the water and we're going to make it run 400 yards northwards. So we have water from I don't believe that it is. In the summer, I pumped over 8 inches of my pool directly into my lot, and there is no swale. There's a shed. There's pictures there, and I dug a trench that is almost 24 inches that bypasses the entire structure. So if there is an issue with the drainage, I can assure you 100% that that trench will collect water from the entire neighborhood, and it will bypass. And I question the judgment of anyone who can put that into words, really, honestly. So.
Okay, well, we're gonna take another look at that. That's what our committee does. So the city's report is a tool. Are there any questions from any of the members of the committee? David?
Mentioned the 10 by 14 building that was in place.
As though my property has been permitted up to that point in time. I did not know. I assumed that it was permitted because the pool was permitted, okay? When we bought the home, we had a drawing of the house, which we have from electricity or anything else coming out of the ground when I did do a revamp on that structure. So I had no idea, and I wish I had writing, and you can only take my word. I did come down to City Hall, and I told them that I was looking at revamping it. I actually made the structure small. I go, well, what about the canopy that I do want? He said, just don't make it ridiculous, is what I was told downstairs. Okay, I can't prove that. You'd have to take my word for it. I did not know. I didn't hear chief of the city. We agreed that I would keep the building low, so it's completely hidden in the very back corner. Can't even see it unless you go to the back of their yard, and basically not even visible. Not even visible.
Okay, thank you.
Now, was the building then made smaller from the 1990?
What we did was we made the canopy, so it's our kind of our getaway. We're in the back corner. We're set from all the properties. It's very private, and basically it's just a roof line that comes over, and we have some furniture, and we sit there, and at the end of our day, or now that we're retired, that's our sanctuary and our zone, our piece.
Change in any way?
The footprints in what regard,
Assuming
sir?
there was a concrete pad.
So it sounds like when you bought the house.
Correct.
With a pool already there, and there's a concrete pad which had the pump pool.
No, we did slightly increase the footprint of the pad. Yes, it has been increased of the pad. If that is your question specifically, yes.
And at the time moved closer to the fence lines?
Yes and no. Like I say, the wall is spinning, or I don't even know how I'm going to begin to address it. It will be thousands upon thousands upon thousands.
The clarification that's being asked was if the pad.
No, I did not. The violation would have been the same in 1990 that I'm being held accountable for right now. Yes, that's clarifying.
We were to approve this application because I believe there was an indication at some point that there wasn't one. So that comment implied to me that there would have to be applied for subsequent to us approving the file. Would a lot
Through the chair to committee member, the comments that we received from the building staff states that the building permit is going to be required. However, I'm not
sure because
I'm
what?
not a building inspector. I don't deal with building permits on a daily basis.
Okay, let me,
In regard to the very first, there was a couple stages in there that you were going to ask, okay? So upon the initial with the structure, it was so aged that he was good with the design, the building of the structure and everything else. We were good with the shed, all right? Upon his third visit to the home, we were implied that we might need a permit. And I questioned him, I go, well, how can you be here twice and tell me, and now the city's doubling back getting the permit, okay? So I wasn't aware of the permit. And now they're saying that that seems to be the plan of attack. Honestly, if you guys approve this very right now, so I'm fighting an endless battle here.
Well, you're not, it's not exactly like you're the victim here. There's a thing that the building inspector, who's not a planner, from a building perspective, made their comments in the same way that this planner is making. That's why you're here. And if no one had complained, then you wouldn't be here, regardless of the infraction, because no one would know. But because the complaint is made, there's a bylaws. So it's just the facts is why we're here. So there's no your perspective, and we will ask the members of the gallery if they want to speak to it, so we can make a decision on this. So thank you for your.
He commented if there was an approval of the variances, would there be a requirement for a building permit? Reconstruct, is that true?
Through the chair, it depends on what would be reconstructed. There are different parameters around what requires it based on the size. And to clarify the earlier point, it's my understanding that a grade, if it were to go through a permit for either what's there or a different structure that also required a permit.
Building permit follows, and the building permit almost always, in a case, asks for a stormwater management grading plan.
From my perspective, and it would appear that it is if he requires a building permit.
Well done, yeah. Carrie, do you have anything to add?
Sometime, and it's difficult because there's virtually an information tsunami, a lot of he said, she said, and I think we're trying to separate the wheat from the chaff and get down to we've determined that a building permit will be required one way or the other, correct? And again, there seems to be this overriding issue that is outside our purview, and that is drainage. There seems to be, if we did approve this, we know there's a building permit now required. What we aren't sure of is whether a site drainage and grading plan would be required. Plan, did you not? You had a draft grading plan, yes or no?
I had to do a professional survey in order to get an official grade. And then he actually plotted and did a drainage drawing for me. And that was part of my submittal. So not only did I have to make public my new survey, but I also had to use that survey for inward and different. And we put all of our fences up prior to 60-year-old installations from the very beginning of the property. When we moved in, when we replaced anything, I actually believed I have a written survey that has been, I don't know, 6 inches when I built the property, that fence 30 years ago. So for the entire time, we've assumed. And as far as I know, the city's assumed it because I spent $800 fixing a fence that I'm now being told isn't on my property, and I paid for the repairs of that violation, and I fixed they were. My neighbor there was the second neighbor who lived there, so I'm still astonished, and I still even question whether or not it was shot improperly because he was there right from the subdivision being built.
Okay, thanks. Tom?
I see there's a comment from Development Engineering about requiring a site servicing and grading plan. So I'm assuming we've determined a building permit will be required unless there's some sort of restructuring done. And
Fair assumption. Let's see if there's anybody who's waiting to speak to this application.
Can I ask another question while I'm at it?
Okay. Carrie?
It relates to the survey, which I can't read with the naked eye. despite being youthful. Where is the, here, let me just plow through the paperwork. It says it is, the requirement is 0.15 for the eaves and gutter. And it's going to be, the application stipulates 0.07 meters. Can you zoom in on that to show us where that is? Because I can't see it, and I don't think any of us. Let's see if we can see it with the unnaked eye.
There should be a detailed drawing.
Yeah, we see it.
I'm not sure what this exercise is going to prove, but does planning want to talk about whether or not they round a assumption of error that's associated when we quote numbers?
The survey shows what was present on the property at the time that the owner had the property surveyed, but the actual request is based on what the owner would like to have there. There is an encroachment of the pool shed shown on the survey onto the neighboring property, which the neighbor, or that the owner is proposing to remove as an encroachment and to bring back the pool shed such that the eaves on that side would only come up to within 7 centimeters, 0.07 of the property, but is based on this survey, but was, I believe, hand-drawn and shows what is actually being asked for. So this survey is informative, but is not showing us what the variances would result in.
We're talking about the shed, we're talking about minor variances. I recall the wonderful information that was added by this gentleman at a previous meeting. Yeah. So we're introducing new information to the conversation because we can remember.
My name is Don Lum. I did make a submission, a written submission. I felt it was important that I talked to the committee. Information that I shared in my submission was that, are we able to bring that up at all?
Well, we're provided all that information in preparation for this meeting, so we've read your submission.
I'm a retired water resources engineer for 42 years in water resources engineering. I've worked with some really good companies, even a conservation authority, as a manager of engineering. Now, subdivision, things change where property owners may make some changes in the elevations, and I even saw a submission by someone that had a topo plan, really nice Warrington Place. I looked at the elevations, and I could see that the elevations appear a little bit higher than the ones at Old Coach, at 43 Old Coach, at 41 Old Coach, and at 39, because that's what I saw. Water to the back of their property, but their properties are a slight bit higher than the ones that are in Old Coach that go to the same. It goes right down towards the properties on Old Coach. Whether there was a swale or not, I can't say, but standard practice swales, the theory is that surface runoff will run on the swale. If you have frozen ground, frozen soils, you happen to have snow covering the entire property, every inch of your property has snow on it. When it melts, it can be worse at the Old Coach properties, because the Warrington properties, at least from my looking at that topo drawing, from my perspective, they're pushing them and confirm the elevations that I saw on the topo today. I saw them today, okay? So my conclusion is that ponding will always occur on properties.
So we don't zone within the setbacks.
Oh, just
So would you agree that the impervious area of this shed is contributing significantly to the?
say no, and I'll give a reason why. normally, water is going to flow at the back side of your property, okay? Now, you can have a shed there, okay? And if the roof system allows the water to drain onto your land, it would not negatively affect 41, the adjacent property, and 39. They seem to be, we can monitor the ponding that you get, and you can determine the impact or minimal impact, then I'm correct. The ponding on someone's property, they just need anymore. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I do believe there's still going to be ponding, and if one actually measured it, it's
In your submission, at the bottom of page 3, you said, Mr. Clout is not the cause of ponding, Mother Nature is. Would that be an appropriate answer to?
I believe that is valid.
Okay, great.
We're not, this individual is not responsible for correcting the water flow, surface water flow, period. Oh, so their water runoff on their neighbor's property, they have to deal with it on their own property. That's how this works. So thank you for your comments. Is there any concluding remarks regarding the fact that this shed is not in?
I think I've explained why I do not feel the shed is causing.
Vantage point on this, given your background, so I do appreciate it.
One last thing.
Okay.
My understanding is engineering has asked Mr. Clout, heading towards the northeast corner, my property is right there, and I was there with the engineer on site, and he said, we're gonna have to turn the water heading, and you're gonna have to either have a channel or a pipe that takes it all the way to Warrington, because if you don't, when you quickly dump water at the back of 43, when you enter on the right-hand side, my sister's property is the one on Upper Canada. And then there's another property, number 5. So unless you're able to positively.
We fully understand. We just don't care about water in this meeting right now.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you that if people have problems with water, contact the engineer. 3 meetings worth of discussion, so I appreciate it. Your point is very well made. Thanks so much. Is there any, just everybody a friendly distance away and in front of a camera. Name and address and comments, please.
Okay, and I have absolutely no issue with any of it. It's not unsightly. So my personal feeling is, what's the issue?
Excellent, and that's this is the opportunity to convey who's not related to the applicant? I'm just kidding. Sure. No, if you're. So just in summary, we've heard, respect to perhaps being sought out and pursued to try and fix a larger problem.
I have requested from the city and the planning department for the documentation that they're using for the swale that he's being upheld to, that his shed is apparently are reflecting an easement that the swale is allegedly in, but we've also been told by drainage engineers that it is not possible to put the easement within, the swale within the easement.
Okay, well, let's talk to planning about the intended to provide access to.
Through the chair, I'm actually not sure what this easement exactly is for. I don't believe it was mentioned by development engineering. The swale document you're looking for is not something that planning necessarily has. I know that there have been multiple people you've spoken with at City Hall and multiple processes you're going through simultaneously. So that was.
Had my survey done, they had a tremendous problem finding that easement, and it did come down, it cost me some extra money. It was, what it's based for, it's for lighting. So there are 2 factors in that easement, Bell Canada and the City of St. Catharines, which is for electrical and lighting considerations.
Okay.
And at the time, that was what it was.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so just to re-clarify, the city itself doesn't have any documentation of the swale, because that is a key factor that we're missing. We did submit something.
Well, if I just make one comment, I mean, regardless of the swale was one of the things that the reason why setbacks are there is to create these spaces for, and when the staff talks about maintenance, it's about so these are just, the zoning bylaw establishes spaces between things and people that are supposed to make our lives a little easier. When we encroach on those minimum spaces, people start to feel crowded out, and I don't even care at this meeting where the swale is. I don't see what the impact is on our decision to be able to decide whether or not this shed should be allowed to remain where it is. Volume of knowledge here. Will there be other people in the gallery who wish to speak this application?
Okay, so again, there's no document, that was a critical part of why it was denied, so I just want to be clear that the city doesn't have anything to do with, it doesn't have a swale, because that was the key proposal, included cutting back the eaves to accommodate to a better, it was the proximity to the property line, which was predetermined as the fence because of how long the fence has sat there. So if it's strictly based on the property line and not solely just the fence, that is not my intention to impact anyone else, but it is very clear based on the evidence that I submitted that it is not just the shed that is impeding on the intended non-existent drainage plan. So that in itself is exactly the whole reason.
And recently understood that there are no more questions from the members of the committee to any of the applicants or speakers. Is there anything you wish to add? Yes. Finally?
Okay, just to summarize, I have a defined with one of the city building engineers or the building inspector as to how I am taking the water away. It's actually being drained into my sump which is in my garage. So it's not a true or a fair statement that I haven't made a lot of efforts or spent in order to be more compliant.
Great, thank you. It's time for one of the committee members to put a motion before us.
This is the recommendation is a denial. I can't remember how we address that. Do we have to do that two-part?
No. Just make your motion.
Just make the motion, yeah, okay. A 5423, as presented in the notice of hearing, I do not want to approve the denial.
Yeah, just say you want it approved.
Yeah, so we're good?
Typically, we've been doing the way you actually intended to. I know it sounds cumbersome, but that's what we've been doing.
Pardon?
Right.
That went away. The general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
Is that motion crystal clear to everybody? You are approving, this application should be approved. Great, thank you.
Thank you. You understand why I'm tippy-toeing through? Because
I do.
we have,
I'd just like to confirm with planning that a building permit would be required.
How about we confirm whether or not we can make it a condition of our decision that this process go on to being required to meet to satisfy the building department?
That would work for me as well.
Is anyone able to tell us that we can't do that?
Truthfully, Chair, I'm not certain the committee has the authority to make that a condition. My understanding is that's all regulated through the building code, through applicable law. I don't think the committee has the authority to compel our building department to require a permit where it would not otherwise be required. That being said, it is my understanding that because the structure was constructed without the benefit of a permit in the first place, and alterations, as we heard, have been made and further.
10 by 10, or however many square meters was and above would require it. So the motion will have to assume then that that is the next step. And the applicant already assumes it's going to be the next step. So if there's no further discussion, all those in favor, right now, all those in favor to approve, boom. All right, your application was approved unanimously. Thank you. '39 Lakeshore Road. We have a minor variance application here to a platform structure, a couple of platform structures. The required distance, and a platform structure is a deck for 3 meters for a number of the dwelling units on one particular part of the property. And staff report is recommending ultimately approval of the application.
Fontanelli, 1296 President Court. Members of committee have no further comment to make other than
In the gallery, who wishes to speak to this application for 239 Lakeshore Road? Okay,
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I move that variance application A7924, as presented in the notice of hearing, be approved, as the variance is minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw.
so does there need to be a friendly amendment that these are not going to become 3-season sunrooms in the future and required to come back here again? We'll just assume we'll turn them into sunrooms. We are now moving over to 70 Leaper Street. And at this address, there is a minor variance, also known as an ADU. Construction of an accessory dwelling unit in a new accessory structure and to permit an existing 5, including 7, are suggested for denial, and only variance 6, as in 1 out of 7, isn't that great, is suggested for approval. The variances range from facade, accessory structure height, maximum floor area being increased from the required interior setbacks to a platform structure, which we just talked about in the previous application, and minimum, state your name, address, and contribute to the conversation about your application.
Thank you very much. My name is Marcus Warstetter from 70 Leaper Street. Just have a brief introduction, basically an overview of the project. This is a response. This response addresses fully designed to enhance functionality and livability while maintaining compatibility with the existing neighborhood character and supporting broader municipal objectives. Yeah, absolutely. Additionally, the ADU has potential to contribute to the rental housing supply in Southern Ontario, addressing a critical community need. Recognizing the importance of ADUs, this project aligns with the city's objectives by making efficient use of underutilized space and supporting diversification of housing options. It's important to emphasize that the proposed variance has yet to be completed. Certain values in this application may differ slightly from what is currently reflected on the plans, ensuring adaptability to avoid potential conflicts or reclassification issues during the approval process. Landscaped open space and minor discrepancies in existing deck heights, for example, a 6-inch deck and an 8-inch deck, are addressed to preempt existing lot while improving the overall site condition. To minimize horizontal sprawl and reduce overall lot coverage, a multi-level design that aligns with the character of the neighborhood. The design is also conscious of stormwater, creates height gradation to transition smoothly with the surrounding built environment while maintaining a subordinate shed style, ensuring it does not overpower the primary dwelling or disrupt the neighborhood character. This property is located in the St. Paul Street CN Bridge rehabilitation. Additionally, this development aligns with recent infrastructure improvements following the reconstruction and sewer separation of Leaper Street, less than 55 Leaper Street and 32A Leaper Street, reflecting the evolving character and growth of the neighborhood. The site is also highly accessible to community amenities, with Bailey Street located less than 200 meters away and Lincoln Park located less than 350 meters away. It is in close proximity to within the existing urban fabric. This response aims to demonstrate that the proposed variances align with the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw while minimizing the potential impacts on any confetti. I'm sorry.
Thank you. So now we're going to ask questions of you, or you have an
I have
informal
a
comment.
couple of informal comments. The planning report was unsupportive. And as this is in a pre-design phase, I ask that the opportunity to defer if staff do not support.
So I would have to, I'll comment that I find it personally, in terms of how I would have to vote on this, the fact that there's not actually a design, and you're just kind of grabbing, able to comment on whether or not these minor variances meet the intent of the official plan, zoning bylaw, et cetera, when there's not really actually even a design yet. So you are entertaining the idea of a deferral. Because you're not going to take the temperature of the committee or the so this is
on the spot. May I ask the city planning staff if their appetite has changed?
Change it 10 minutes before the meeting. We know that because we often get revisions.
Okay.
So we've come to this meeting with this report. Okay. Any questions from the member of the committee to the applicant?
Specifically variance 6.
Something.
Why are you requesting up to 0 meters? Is that potentially you want to widen the building all the way to the lot line?
Already on site. Realistically, that variance is of the most minor concern right now. It can be, it's an existing condition, which is.
Through the chair to the applicant, then, is what the footprint that's shown, is that the 18%? Or is the 18% if we were to move it over to the lot line for 0 meters?
The footprint shown is about tools or garbage enclosures to increase property standards, to maintain property standards.
See, this is why I think you should reconsider the deferral, because we're not going to go through here and adjust the numbers on a whim, based on a polygon, a multi-sided polygon, which is the definition of a polygon, which has no content in it to show that there's any, if you proceed with this this evening.
I appreciate that, Chair.
Anybody in the committee, anybody in the audience wish to speak to this application? Nope. Any further questions to the committee?
Just to help frame a thing, we might consider a variance of up to 8 meters.
So the interior wall of the lot, I guess, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, it's the middle wall there, the peak of the roof and the shed-style roof there.
Okay, it's kind of technical in nature then.
Any other committee members have any questions? Would someone like to, any final comments you want to consider the deferral request at this time? That was the,
That just came up.
it did.
That would be my,
Attaboy, good move. All right, this broad idea without any parameters to discuss it with the planning staff.
May I?
For that one?
Oh, okay.
The March one is basically due in a couple of days. So
So 2 months would be probably
I would say-
Amount of time for the applicant to be able to convince staff that what they want to do is.
We couldn't put a timeline on that because it's all contextual on what is being proposed. Once we receive a proposal, we will evaluate it against the 4 tests.
This is not a hard number. So how about we give you 4 months and you can come agreeable to the applicant. Would someone like to make a motion regarding that?
so moved. 4 month deferral.
Go the whole, say the whole thing so Elaine can hear it.
I move that application, what is it? 8024
Yep.
for 70 Leaper Street be deferred for 4 months.
All those in favor of the motion? Jeez. Congratulations, your deferral's been approved. See you whenever we see you.
Thank you.
Earlier, they knew what to do, and now we're off to 5 Emmett Road, named after the famous guitar player Rick Emmett, no doubt. So the Applicant proposed seven apartment buildings containing a total of 229 dwelling units for 5 Emmett Road, minor variances, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Variances, and they are suggesting that variances 1 through 9 be approved, and variance 10 be approved with a rewording of it.
Sure. Good evening, Chair, committee members. My name is Ethan Lamont. I'm a senior planner with. So if we go to the next slide, please. It's located at the corner of Emmett Road and Queenston Street. It's about 1.35 hectares, or about 3 acres in area. The Victoria Lawn Center, as well as some commercial uses to the north and east. The property is designated as, the official plan requires that mixed-use properties be developed to a minimum density. Under the city zoning bylaw, the lands are zoned as medium-density mixed use, or M1. The M1 zone permits So the development proposal for the property consists of 7 blocks of stacked townhouses containing 129 dwelling units. So under the zoning bylaws, are 12.2 meters in height, which is considerably less than the 20 meters permitted under the official plan and zoning bylaw. A total of 142 while also breaking up large parking sections for more visually appealing layout. Additionally, bike racks are included throughout the site, offering space for at least 30 bicycles. A total of 43% of the lot is reserved for landscaping, which more than doubles the zoning. Buffers are also provided between the buildings and parking areas and abutting properties to ensure the new development is well integrated into the existing neighborhood. And finally, the commenting agencies. So the site plan would address matters such as the servicing, the landscape design, and stormwater management. Next slide, please. And it would look like viewed from Queenston Street looking down Emmett Road. And the bottom image shows the development viewed to facilitate the development proposal shown in this table. So the variances requested are for a reduction in parking, a reduction in front yard setback for the building and platform structure, a reduction in exterior side yard for the building and platform structures, and a reduction in landscape buffer for the parking areas. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going through the variances individually. All the variances contribute to the layout and design of the development, which incorporates good design practices to ensure closer to the street, with the parking areas located behind, which contributes to a vibrant and attractive streetscape. The variances also prioritize the provision of landscaping over paved areas, which is the presentation here, but if there's any questions, we're certainly happy to answer them.
Of all the wonderful images in your presentation, there's not one that highlights all these minor variances for the benefit of highlights all of minor variances?
They're individual slides highlighting the variances.
Okay, thank you. Any question? I'm going to assume that you figured out how this works. Please come on down, have a seat, turn on the mic, tell us your name, address, and what your concerns are relative to these variance requests.
My name's Anthony Kojin. I'm residing at 23 Emmett. We're at the immediate south side of this development. We have a number of concerns. This is our first opportunity since the sign came up to actually these things addressed. I'll speak to some of the variances specifically, but I know you don't want to hear about wastewater management, but there's a ditch along the south side where all this water is supposed to drain down to. It is currently plugged. It drains into a neighboring commercial unit, which is private property. And the city's told me several times now that they have no say in that private property. So right now there is no water management plan per se. We did have a call with the engineering department on Monday, and they agreed to some of the concerns that I had addressed as well, but they're not reflected in these reports. So we need to, that's all I'll say about that one for right now. There's 129 units. That's up from the original 90 units. So I don't see that as a minor variance, but that's another thing. I think there's no other parking in the area. So everybody that has to go do anything has to drive. There's a comment about the transit in the location. There is a bus along Canal Road, but that bus only services over probably to Fairview Mall, transfer to another place, and then transfer to another place to get someplace. It took me close to an hour to get from that bus stop at the corner to Fairview to catch the GO bus one time. So it's not a convenient bus. So there's a lack of transit. There's the traffic plan, I think is, and these are all summarized. You guys, I think, have a letter from me someplace there.
Yeah, so essentially, the remote location and reduced transit opportunities, you think the pressure to have the minimum number of parking required by the zoning bylaw should be maintained to reduce.
And there's no mention in the traffic plan about the bridge. And everybody who lives in this area knows about the Homer Bridge. It's just.
Am I the only one? But
Yeah,
okay,
that's only
great.
if you're up at the front.
I'm never in a rush to go anywhere.
That's up your front. If you're back in, by the
So
cemetery there.
I'm confident I saw a response from them within this report, but that's typically the case.
Yeah, I saw some general stuff, but they didn't, I don't think they'll be going through there. But I think there's an allowance for 1 or 2 cars at the intersection from there. It'll have to be more than that.
How about, as you go along, how about we give the design of the units, we only have surface parking outside of the, in front of the units. There's no garage associated with it, but typically the 1.25, I suppose, that quarter car ends up becoming like a visitor parking situation. So, did you want to comment if what you're suggesting? Well, did you want to comment on that any further? Is there anything more you wish to add?
Sure, through you, Chair. I suppose I would just reiterate what the staff report and also the traffic study that we submitted included a parking analysis, and the result of that parking analysis was that the proposed parking supply was sufficient for the development.
So this is a case to the concerned citizen that there's sort of an engineering response, and then there's your person in the field observing all these things, and they don't always jive. But it was commented on in the application, reviewed by the city, and there was that response that you saw, and then you're just overlaying what you actually see on a daily basis. So
Yes.
appreciate.
There is no output from Outlet A. So, and it's not being watched or analyzed. I don't know if there's any consideration of having more transit. If you're having less parking, more people, is there going to be an adjustment for that?
So I assume that transit is something that is, and I know there's another development, one property over against Canal Road,
Yes.
which is being proposed. I assume that the transit available there, we know that it can be expanded upon, and it's been cited, the availability of transit includes transit as well.
Okay.
But point made, thank you. Next.
Next point is the previous layout I saw of this.
The site plan would be
Site plan.
appropriate.
Yeah, site plan would be better. So if you zoom in more to the south side there, the left-hand side.
Right here, these units?
No, the other ones, up higher.
Okay.
Warehouse is just, you can just see a faint line there on the left-hand side of the property line. There's a very faint line. I don't know if you can zoom in on that. Okay.
So what about the location of those buildings?
So this is the first time I saw this. Previously, that row of buildings was actually over facing Emmett Road, and there was a fire lane between the buildings and our property. So now we're going to have a
Through the chair, so there is no minor variance requested for a setback between that block and this individual's house.
Again, there are these invisible lines on all of our property, which are supposed to keep us sufficient meets those minimum requirements. So there actually is no minor variance for that. So that is not something that we're actually considering as one of the 10 minor variances.
So the minor variances to which bylaw? Because the previous version that we saw had a totally different layout of the buildings.
Yeah, so this is the one we're looking at now. This has not been before us before. So this is the only one we've seen.
This is the first one? Okay.
And you pointed out specifically the buildings that, those buildings are located where the zoning bylaw permits.
Okay. And the last one is just somebody mentioned, closed off. So people going up the stairs, there could be people hiding in there, so there's safety concerns. Guess where they're going to run? Right by our place. So we're looking for anything that...
In terms of the zoning bylaw, dark corners where creeps can hang out, it doesn't show up. Again, it's not a zoning bylaw issue. It can have the applicant or any particular drawing that you have.
Of the exteriors.
Yeah, so ultimately, exit only through a stair. So your concern is pragmatic, but not something that's covered under any of these minor variances. But noted here in this public meeting. Thank you. Any final comments or anything in summary you wanted to point out?
Turned off. The only thing I'm asking is to see.
The answer is,
Yeah, no, certainly, we can certainly have a site meeting and walk Drainage Act, our water to that water course. And the way we're familiar with that system, we understand the pipe that goes across that property and ultimately outlets to the canal. So our requirements from a stormwater management perspective are to control our pre to post flows. So that means that only the amount of water that goes off the property today can be the amount of water that goes off to the property post-development. So what we do is we control the water through basically storage tanks underneath the parking lot. So there's an orifice pipe on the manhole, and that throttles the water back up into the system to ensure that the rate of flow coming out of that system and ultimately going into that water course is the same as it is today.
Yeah, that's not quite right, because nothing goes from the property right now down into that ditch. Right now, the water behind us is going in there. Nothing from the property really is going in there at this time.
and that's the reason why the conversation goes through graphical surveys and stormwater management surveys say presumably it's the maintained and managed on this property. With respect to authorities having jurisdiction, like the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority, they always like to have to be involved in projects. In fact, dealing with them, then they're doing their job and making sure that the development is sensitive to the water runoff. Agreement process for this application planning?
Yes, to the chair, there is, and it is ongoing. So the engineer, I believe, will be in touch with.
The generous invitation from the people representing the application to meet with you on site that is public.
That's it?
That's what I'm trying to confirm for you. The site plan agreement does not involve a public process.
Through the chair, the site plan agreement is not a formally public process. No, there's not. The site plan process is public in the sense that you are available, like the materials submitted are available for you to view. You can speak with.
Okay.
That was an FYI.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
One last thing. I'm just wondering how this development ties into the commercial unit.
Ownership of property. Within the property lines of this particular property, this is the development that's happening. Involved in these. That's why they are involved in these projects, is to have an eye on planning, as in for the future. Back to this meeting, talking about this piece of property, we're focused on just this piece of property, but on the larger context, the city. You can contact the city staff at planning and ask them about what the plans are for the future of the growth of that area. But right now, that has no impact. Report from planning, and they have to go through planning because they're keeping an eye on the future. Okay. We're focused on, but call them on Monday or Tuesday and say you're interested.
We've been in touch. We're going to be in touch again.
Call them again. Thank you.
Thank you.
So intention is to build on the conversation we've started. Having already talked about the issues of concern by the previous speaker.
Tom Wilson, 33 Emmett Road. Our backyard backs onto this property, 5 Emmett Road. Place there of homes. And any given day, you can find John Dempsey Park packed with cars. On the weekend, the only choice they have is the Victorian Lawn Cemetery. And I don't really think that's appropriate, so perhaps providing more parking with this development is a good idea.
Local residents are concerned about parking, increased traffic, and so on. So the applicant does have to provide a rationale, which they provided in their application, capacity of the roads and so on, and they sum it all up in a report that comes to us to review, and it's available publicly. So their opinion is, as per their recommendation, is that variances 1 through.
Don't you find the cemetery is a sensitive area to be parking cars in on weekends?
That's an assumption that people are going to park their cars there.
Where else are they going to park them, sir?
We're not going to engage in an argument. Parking spaces per unit is a requirement. 1.1 is the ask. So it's 0.15 cars that they're eliminating out of there, and another 0.15 cars per dwelling unit, which, I don't know, the back tires and the trunk or something, until you get to 142. So yes, they're asking for a reduction, and one could argue that the reduction is at the expense of having more units on the property, or the required driveway circulation for emergency vehicle access. But your point is taken, and was shared by the previous speaker. So another point would be, if you have another point to make, that we
Thank you.
happy to hear it.
And again, it's the stormwater issue. At the edge of my property, the water begins to flow uphill to about 2 feet before it leaves the other property. So I just don't see how you're not going to prevent backflow.
Provide the proof to the city, and the city, through their experience, evaluates it and determines that it's...
Sorry, I don't believe water flows uphill.
No, I'm not arguing about gravity.
Okay.
I'm just
I mean,
saying
that's just being practical.
and phone calls. So it's in the city's best interest to have the developer pay for the solution to fix this problem, rather than the city to have to pay for it and deal with complaints.
Well, that's what I'm looking into. I'm looking for you guys. Yes.
You won't get a chance to comment on it.
No,
So,
no.
But
We do
but it
understand
is-
water does not flow uphill, right? We got that part clear?
Thank you.
That's why a site meeting's required, so that everybody can get the gist of this.
Well, and as a courtesy, a site meeting has been, a meeting has been offered on site, and I don't know how you communicate directly with the, a time for a meeting.
Fantastic.
Okay.
I'm not trying to be difficult here, but it's going to be an issue for our property and our neighbor's property.
Great,
going
thank
the
you.
wrong way. Thank you.
Anybody else wish, if you turn your
To speak specifically to the reduction in parking requirements, but I'm a bit at a notice of hearing by the city.
Well, let's drill down on that. Is there a, because that would be unusual. So is there a difference? There's no intention of a sleight of hand, because we, the committee members, would also feel tricked, duped as well. So, okay. So this is the site plan.
Well, the one in the notice of hearing had a retaining wall adjacent to Emmett Road, between Emmett Road and the development itself, and there was stairs pictured on that.
Could the
I don't see the stairs or the retaining wall, but I must admit that's kind of small on this drawing.
We'll have the applicant comment on that.
Yeah, so between, in the service, the lower level surface parking area.
Yeah, I see that on the drawing, and your issue with that?
This one seems to only have one. And on the previous artist's rendering,
Would highlight the retaining wall. Is there a particular, do you want to know more about the retaining wall, about its height, or is there something we can talk about?
So I'll go with that. Yeah, my concern was with the reduction in parking requirements. This area, the people here are going to have probably one car for every adult. And yes, if the Emmett Road is 33 feet, which is half of the standard road allowance. It's a narrow road, barely enough room, again, isn't depicted there. And down towards Queenston Street again, adjacent to this site, the hill, cars parked on the road. In the original drawing, or the drawing that was presented with this notice of hearing, there was an proposal from 33 feet to 48 feet, which is still less than 3/4 of the standard 66-foot road line, but it doesn't meet their standard.
Well, we'll ask the city because they're right here. So is there a road?
Through the chair, the road widening being taken was determined by our engineering staff based on the needs of the road, but also those right-of-way widths are guidelines. They are not absolute minimums that must be taken at all times. So this was the amount determined by our engineering staff.
If there's not enough parking on site, people are going to park on Emmett Road. And if they can't park on Emmett Road, because you also have to consider the properties to the south of this on Emmett Road are single-family houses on large lots, but they're all zoned for the same go on further south of this. Emmett Road is a dead-end road, it all has to flow out towards Queenston Street. So that's a lot.
You and concerned neighbors can say, hey, city, we want no parking signs on Emmett Road. Please engage us. That's an area where citizens can, petition to have things changed. So if no parking signs on this side of the road. And so yes, what citizens can come and say is, we don't agree that 1.1 parking spaces meet the requirements of the official plan and zoning bylaw. 1.1 from 1.25. It was never 2 or 3.
As you pointed out earlier, that's 19 cars. Enough room for one other car to pass is not safe.
Understood?
And if they don't park on Emmett Road,
Property, and they would be policed, right?
if you want to do it that way, sure. Or you could just have adequate parking in this development.
So again, the adequate parking would be 19 more spaces for 129 units.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's exactly the point you're supposed to make.
19 cars parked on Emmett Road is going to be a problem, is what I'm saying.
That's exactly the point you're making, and we appreciate it, and it's been shared by your previous speakers, so thank you. If there's anything further you wish to add, this would be the time. Otherwise, we can ask if there's anyone else who wishes to speak to the application.
Unless there's any questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So certainly, if there's anybody else who's wishes to speak to the application, and it's anything new to the conversation, that would be helpful. But the parking, and they're asking us to determine whether it's a reasonable ask to have this reduction. And the response that we're getting from the city staff is, and it will be part of our decision-making process. But if there's anything new to add, so given the discussion that we've heard, are there any further questions? Does the applicant wish to comment on anything?
Following consideration of all written and oral presentations, I approved as the variances are minor in nature, appropriate and desirable for the use of the land, and are in keeping with the general intent and purpose.
Can I just clarify that?
The motion? Okay, so to the applicant, your application has been approved unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for the participation of the community. So this is it for our agenda in terms of files. Is there any new or other business to discuss?
Not at this time, no.
The date of the next hearing is?
February 19th.
February 19th. Same time, same place, different file.